Scraps, and today I'm going to be using StitchArtist 2 to digitize an SVG file that I found at Daily Art Hub called Anchors Away. And it's adorable. If you have not moved into StitchArtist 2, the flexibility of being able to use your vector images is worth its weight in gold. What I'm talking about is when you are in the Create Design menu of Embrilliant software of StitchArtist, you click on this and you get all these buttons up here. Now I'm working in StitchArtist 3, so don't let this intimidate you. In order to follow along with me for today's sharing of my adventures, you do need to have StitchArtist 2. What I'm talking about is in StitchArtist 1, you are limited to the image and TrueType fonts. In StitchArtist 2, you get an additional toggle over here for vector art. That's your SVG, Studio from the Silhouette software. Oh gosh, that sort of stuff. The things you can use with your paper cutters. And because I do have 2 different paper cutters, digital cutters in my house, I've got a ton of SVG images on my computer already. That's why I like this particular version of the software. Now it is in StitchArtist 3 as well, but I'm sorry, StitchArtist 1 doesn't have it. That said, let's get busy. What I'm going to do is open my design. So I need to select my vector button, and because I was playing in it, I navigate to the file where I've stored my SVG images. This particular design that I'm going to do today is from Anchors Away, like I said earlier, from Daily Art Hub. It was a free download. Now I believe for the set it's $2.99. Cute stuff though. And I'm going to bring it in. So I click on it, select the file I want, and open it. It is an SVG image. You can see that it's opened up on my screen. I know it's going to be difficult to actually see. I tried changing it, didn't work. But you can look at all the objects over here, and you can see that we have quite a few objects that we're going to be working with. In just a second, I'm going to show you how to clean this up. It needs very little, but I'm going to clean it up, and then we're going to start digitizing. When I've used my Daily Art Hub images, they are very well made. Okay, they simply are very well made. However, sometimes when I open them up, the way that the bits and pieces of the art lie, it doesn't mean it's going to stitch expeditiously. In other words, the order isn't quite right for stitching in the most efficient way possible for my machine. So sometimes I have to make a difference in how I clean up my artwork. There's 2 places I'm going to change around, and from what came in when I just opened it. One is with the anchor. You see the anchor here and the circle that creates the handle on the anchor. If you look at the objects menu, you can see that there's 2 objects there, and I want it to become 1. And the other place that I'm going to actually reorder is this whole little rope. But I'll get to that in a minute. The first thing I'm going to do is the anchor, and I'm going to show you why. If I select my anchor right here, and I just fill it as it is, I've lost my hole. I've completely lost anything that makes this look like a handle at the top. So I go to my undo. If you've not met them, the undo redo buttons, make them your best friend. You're gonna love them. They really keep a lot of things bad from happening. And I'm now gonna combine this hole with this anchor. So I'm going to select my anchor from the objects menu. I'm going to hold down my shift key on my computer and select the hole underneath it. I can tell they're selected because they are a darker gray. Now I'm going to go to my drop down menu at the very top, select Create, Outline, Combine Hole. Whoops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I said, undo. Try this again. Select, Create, Outline, combine holes. So it's create, outline, combine holes. And now if you look at the menu, you can, or the objects, you can see that they are actually combined into one. And that's how I'm going to clean up that particular design. Now, the next thing I'm going to start working on is my rope. As I'm cleaning it up, and it's a little bit more work than the anchor was, I'm going to have to reorder all of these little circles. Oh, by the way, I did change the color, so hopefully it's a little bit easier for you to see. What do I mean by reorder? For example, I'm going to select this one. It's object number 3 on my menu, and you can see it is not the first. What I want to actually start doing, I want to start stitching from here and then just go 1, 2, 3, 4 and go across, or from here and do the same. So this, if I select the first one, it doesn't even show up. I have to scroll down. It's actually object 23 in my object menu. So we're going to reorder that. Let me show you a way that's going to help you actually see it. Let's make the objects menu a little bit bigger. So if I click and hold, there's a little at the very top of the color menu. There's a little, it's hard to see, a little arrow. If I click and hold on that, I can actually get more of my object menu visualized. Parts to my rope here. Because there are so many objects in this particular design, I'm going to put the anchor and the stars in their own little grouping of designs, and that way I just have to worry about moving around the bits of the rope rather than bumping into one of these. It also is going to help me because I can condense or collapse it down. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to my Create, Design, Begin New Design, and down at the very bottom I have an empty design space. I have to scroll all the way down. Now I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to move it first. Now open this up again. I'm going to select my anchor and my stars. I can do that by clicking one and then clicking, click on one, hold my shift key down, star, click one. On my Mac it's a command. I select them all and then I just simply drag them up into that design and drop it. You can see I've got my anchor, my stars. Now I'm going to collapse it down, and now I'm free to work on all of this mess, which I'm sorry, I can't call it anything else. So I've got my line. You can see I'm just simply jumping around. I'm going to jump around until I find my first one, or I could come over here, click on it, and it's number 2019. If I with it highlighted gray, click on that, right click, move first. Okay, now I'm going to go to my second one. Right click, move earlier. I could right click if I wanted to, or I can simply hold my mouse down and move it up. Let's go to my third one. It's down at the bottom too. For me, right click, hold, mouse click, hold, and it's number 3. Okay, what I'm doing is I actually am counting as I go. It gets a little confusing over here, but so it's number 4. It happened to be in the right place. That's lucky. 5. If you look at the numbers here, it'll help you a lot. So I drag that up to now number 5, number 6. So Again, the mechanics of this, I select the part that I want, and this will be now number 8. Find it in the listing of the objects menu. Mouse click, drag, and hold, and see the blue line between 7 and 8? Drop it right there. And what we're going to do next is we're actually going to apply our stitches to our SVG image. I have reorganized my rope and I've double checked it to make sure that it moves just like I'm walking along the street, simply by clicking down the objects. And the next thing I'm going to do is go up to my objects, my design number 1, and I'm going to apply stitches to my anchor. So I'm going to select the anchor. The stitches will come in at the color of the outline. And my outline is red. I'm going to give me some space up here. And I'm just simply going to select the fill stitch. And that came in really, really nice. But I don't necessarily want it flat, which is what it is. I'm going to make some adjustments over here in my fill menu. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check out my underlay. The purpose of underlay is to provide a table for your designs to lay on. And a lot of the type of underlay you choose is not so much your preference, think of it in terms of your fabric preference. In other words, you would use a different type of underlay for a cotton than you do for a knit. You want to stabilize your fabric so that your stitches will approximate one another. If I'm using a stable fabric, when I say that, you want your outlines to come up against your fill. If I'm using a stable fabric, the flex in between the fill and the outline is not going to be as great as in, say, on a t-shirt. I won't have to worry about the compensation of my fill stitches quite as much. So basically, your underlay is to provide stability. The software defaults to contour and perpendicular, which I usually just leave it, at least for my test runs, and then I can go back and check it later. We're not going to mess with this pattern. We're not going to mess with any of this. We are going to go back to this, because what we're going to do is we're going to select a texture. Let's see. We'll go with the snake, and we're going to make it curved. Now what I want to do is I don't necessarily want it to curve up. I want the curve of the design to follow the curve of my anchor. What I have is what's it called? Darn, an inclination line. Thank you. And the inclination line is actually how the stitches are going to travel. So I'm going to take the center node. Now remember, even in digitizing, 3 nodes to make an arc. So this is my arc. And I'm simply going to pull my arc downward. And you can see that it follows the design. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. Follows the path that I've just created. It's hard to see right here, but it does. I promise you it does. And this is where you can get a little bit more texture in your designs. What happens if I move this up and this to the tip? That way it actually does follow. Ooh, I like that. And we're going to zoom out. So you can see my inclination line. I've moved the 2 yellow points, 2 yellow nodes to the top of my points, and I have a nice little curve that it's following. Now I have a beginning and ending right here, and I'm just going to leave it because for this particular purpose it's fine. I don't need to worry too much about it. So that is the basis of my anchor, but I'm going to do one thing more. I'm going to select it from my object menu, and I'm going to copy it, which is Command C on my Mac or Control C on a PC, and I'm going to paste it. Command V, Control V. And it went to the wrong place. Oh dear. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to grab it and move it back up where I want it, which is in right there. But I don't want two fills. I'm going to take and I'm going to change by selecting my second one. I'm going to change it to an outline stitch. And I'm going to move over to my object panel and select double for my running stitch and select tie. Yeah, we'll just tie it, entry and tie it. And now I have an outline run for my anchor. Now I'm going to do virtually the same things. Let's just do one star. Let's take the yellow one and I'm going to fill it, and I'm going to go back to my fill menu. Again, I'm going to leave it at the default for the underlay. I'm going to select down and I'm going to go diamond 2, and I love that pattern. Let's look at it. And I'm going to put a little motion there. You can see it a little better from a distance. Again, we're going to duplicate it. Command C, Command V. Oops, sorry. Command C. Select Design, Command V. There it is. No, it isn't. Again. I'm having little problems here, but that's okay. We can fix it. Bring it all the way up to this particular design and place it underneath the fill. Again, I'm going to select it, outline, double, and ties. Tie it, entry, tie up, exit. Little thing, tie, bow tie, and back. And that's exactly how I'm going to finish off my stars. In just a second, we're going to start working on that rope. Digitized. When you look at the little jelly bean shapes, my natural inclination was to come up here and grab the Satin Column stitches. After I played with it for a while, I decided that probably wasn't the best thing to do, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to select my shape and I'm going to fill Satin Column. And when you look at it, okay, there's no pattern selected, the density is fine, the length is 4 millimeters. What it does is the Satin Column has to have two sides to operate across. Well, it doesn't know if you want it to operate from here to there or from there to there. So it just automatically will fill in. I tried moving my opening and closing stitches to see what it would do, and it helped a little bit, but it didn't really help all that much. See what happens if I put them across from each other. And that's not going to work either. And there's a very specific reason why. In digitizing this, I want my end to be here because I want this little stitch, which is going to be minuscule and it probably won't show up at all. I want it to lead into the beginning of this shape. So in the end, Satin Column wasn't going to work for me. So let's go back to the beginning, not so much back to the drawing board. What I decided to do was to use my fill stitch one more time. And I'm going to show you a little trick. Let's go back to the create. According to this is 3/16 of an inch long. You can see it right up here, and it's 1/8 of an inch across. All right, so that means from here to here is 1/8 of an inch wide. That is very foreseeable that it is, you can actually, when you're filling it, have one stitch going across. So, instead of that pattern where the needle goes in here, in here. It could go here to here with one stitch. Let's go back to the Create Design menu. I know it sounds like Greek, but you'll see it in the end. With this little nodule, whatever your jelly bean, I don't know what to call it, selected, I'm going to select my fill stitch. Now I'm going to make some setting changes. I'm going to come to my menu. I'm going to select no, not scales, no design, and I'm going to have my length be a little bit more than it is right now. When I say a little bit more, 1/8 of an inch is equal to 3.17 blah 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 millimeters. This stitch length is in millimeters. That means from here to here, the needle will travel 3.5 millimeters before it inserts again. Now I'm going to put it, I'm just for safety's sake going to go to 5 millimeters. That's about as long as I want. And now I'm going to make some adjustments in how this stitch is going to lay in this oval shape. I'm going to take my inclination line and I'm going to do the same thing for all of them. I'm going to have it going the width of my node. Now, if I have my inclination going like this, I don't like that. I want it to go like this. In other words, my stitches are going to run across. I'm going to take and hover over my little green bow tie, click on it and drag it to the top. I want it to start at the top. I'm going to do the same with the red, but I want it to end at the bottom. Okay, let me click on that. And you can see start, stop. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this particular shape. Click on it, fill it, change it to none, 5, and I'm going to swing my inclination line around to where it goes across, begin, and end. Okay, since we have, basically we want the same stitch qualities for the entire rope. Before we go too far, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of a shortcut. And I'm sorry, for some reason I'm on summer break and my brain really is on summer break. I've selected all of my non-stitch filled objects. To do that, select one, hold my shift key down, select them all. And now I'm going to go to my fill stitch up at the top, select fill. I'm going to come down here to my menu and select none, select 5, and now they have all of the same stitch qualities, except I have to go in individually. Let me set it, and I'll take and begin and end like I was before, and that's a whole lot less time rather than going through and setting each one individually as far as from my stitch menu. With that said, let me go ahead and adjust all of my stitches. Cross, beginning, and across. And I do talk to myself when I'm doing this, believe it or not. And I'll finish up and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay. I've pretty much finished up my design and I'm really very happy with it on screen. The only way I'm going to know for sure if it stitches out well is by using a comparable fabric to what I'm going to be stitching it on and then making some tweak adjustments. There are a couple of places, however, that I've identified that might be problems. One is when it enters into the rope, right here, this space here, this space, and the end. And what I want to do is I'm going to insert some tie-offs so that I don't have to worry about it raveling out. So I'm going to select that part of my design, select my tie-off, and I've already done it actually, but I'm just going to tie off at entry. Again here, tie off at exit. Right here, tie off at exit. Right here, tie off at entry. Right here, tie off at exit. And probably here, tie off at exit. And here, tie off at entry. And that should secure my stitching just a little bit. Now before I leave, I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go to File, Save As. Now I have several versions of this. You can see it pops up as Anchors Away. This is probably my third one, and I'm going to keep it Anchor 3. When I'm finished and I'm sure that this is pretty much the way I want it to be, I'll delete the previous versions of this design. And that way I have sequential numbering on them, so I know that number 3 will be the last one. Save your BE file. It's totally editable. It's totally editable. No, you're not going to eat it. You can fix it if you have your BE file. Until next time, I hope you've enjoyed it and learned some new tricks that you didn't think you could do. Bye.